Chosen one, listen carefully, because this is not encouragement and it is not motivation. This is a divine announcement. What you are sensing is real. What you've been feeling lately, the subtle change, the quiet release, the unexplainable calm, is not imagination, coincidence, or emotional fluctuation. It is confirmation. The atmosphere around your life has shifted. Not symbolically, not metaphorically, literally. Something that once surrounded you, pressed against you, resisted you, and limited you has been removed. The spiritual environment that governed your movement for so long is no longer active. You are no longer breathing the same air you were before. The heaviness that followed you from room to room, the resistance that made simple progress feel exhausting, the silence that echoed back when you prayed, those were signs of an old atmosphere. An atmosphere that was allowed for a season, but never meant to be permanent. And now, without noise, without announcement, without warning, God has changed it. There was a time when it felt like everything required extra effort, extra faith, extra patience, extra endurance. You pushed forward, but the ground felt thick beneath your feet. You spoke words of belief, but they seemed to dissolve into the air before reaching heaven. You waited, but time felt stretched and unresponsive. That wasn't because you were doing something wrong. It wasn't because you lacked faith or alignment. It was because you were moving through an atmosphere of resistance, one that restricted flow, slowed momentum, and tested endurance. That atmosphere was heavy with delay, confusion, and silence. It carried pressure without explanation. It drained energy without showing its source. And for a long time, it lingered. But hear this clearly. That environment is no longer present. It does not have authority over you anymore. The spiritual weather has changed. The pressure that once pressed against your destiny has lifted. The ceiling that once limited your reach has opened. The resistance that once fought your obedience has been dismissed. Heaven has altered the conditions surrounding your life. And when the atmosphere changes, everything else responds. Movement becomes easier. Clarity returns. Prayer travels differently. Rest feels deeper. Hope feels safer. This is not hype. This is alignment. You are standing in a new spiritual climate, one that supports your calling instead of challenging it. You didn't force this shift. You didn't earn it through striving. It came because the season ended, because timing aligned, because preparation was complete. God does not announce atmospheric shifts with noise. He does it quietly, precisely, and intentionally. And the fact that you are here, hearing this now, is proof that you are already inside the change. You didn't miss it. You didn't arrive late. You are not behind. You are standing in the after effect of a divine decision that has already been made in your favor. The old atmosphere has passed. The new one has settled. And from this moment forward, nothing will move the same way it used to. Chosen one, this is the moment where alignment matters. Not because the shift depends on you, it has already happened, but because your agreement determines how fully you walk in it. This is not a message to rush through. This is an invitation to stay present, to remain until the end, because every word you allow to settle becomes a point of alignment between you and what God has already released. Atmospheres respond to agreement. When you listen consciously, when you stay engaged, when you allow your spirit to respond instead of resisting, you synchronize with the change that is already underway. That is why you were drawn here. Not by accident, not by algorithm alone, but by resonance. There is a reason you are being asked to participate, not just listen. Words are not passive in the spiritual realm. They are instruments of agreement. When you speak what aligns with heaven, you give permission for manifestation to accelerate. That is why I ask you intentionally, not mechanically, to engage, to comment your wish, to write the number 99. Not because the number itself is magic, but because obedience and agreement open channels. It is a conscious act that says, I recognize the shift, and I agree with it. Heaven responds to recognition. When you acknowledge what God is doing, you position yourself to receive it more clearly. Liking, subscribing, staying present, these are not empty gestures here. They are acts of awareness. They anchor you into the moment instead of letting your mind drift. They declare that you are not a bystander in your own transition. You are a participant. Alignment is not effort, it is attention. And right now, your attention is being refined. The more consciously you enter this moment, the more naturally the shift integrates into your life. This is how spiritual activation works, not through force, but through agreement. Do not underestimate small acts of obedience in a season of transition. You are not being asked to strive. You are being asked to synchronize, to say yes internally, to let your spirit lean forward instead of holding back. The atmosphere has already changed. This moment is about your awareness catching up to what has already occurred. Stay open. Stay receptive. Stay until the end. Because clarity compounds. And by the time this message concludes, you will recognize that something inside you has already moved into place. Chosen one, before you can fully step into what has changed, you must understand what you survived. There was a season where you kept moving forward, yet nothing seemed to respond. You prayed, but the silence felt louder than the answers. You tried again, but the resistance felt invisible and unexplainable. You took steps of faith, yet the ground beneath you felt unstable, as if progress itself was being questioned. This wasn't failure. This wasn't punishment. This was the experience of moving through an unfriendly spiritual climate, one where growth required endurance instead of momentum, where faith collided with resistance you couldn't see or name. You did everything you knew how to do. You showed up. You believed. You stayed obedient even when it felt unrewarded. And still, confusion lingered. Stagnation pressed in. Emotional weight settled on your chest without explanation. You questioned yourself, not because you lacked faith, but because the environment around you did not support movement. When the atmosphere is wrong, even the right actions feel heavy. That is what you were navigating. And it is important that you recognize this, because self-blame does not belong in your new season. The frustration you felt was valid. The weariness was understandable. The moments of doubt were not signs of weakness. They were reactions to pressure. You were trying to rise in a climate that resisted elevation. You were trying to hear in an atmosphere that muted sound. You were trying to move in a space that slowed momentum. And yet, you didn't quit. That matters. Heaven noticed. Your endurance was not wasted. It was formative. This season shaped your discernment. It deepened your dependence. It stripped illusions and refined your voice. Even when nothing moved externally, something was stabilizing internally. And now that the atmosphere has changed, you will realize that you were never stagnant. You were being strengthened under pressure. The confusion is lifting. The emotional weight is dissolving. And the clarity returning will make sense of everything that once felt pointless. Nothing was lost. Nothing was wasted. You are being prepared for an environment that could finally sustain you. Chosen one, understand this clearly. The shift you are experiencing is not symbolic. It is literal in the unseen realm. The spiritual frequency surrounding your life has altered. The vibration has changed. The pressure has lifted. The temperature has adjusted. Where things once felt frozen, rigid, or stalled, movement is returning. Where you once felt spiritually numb or fatigued, sensitivity is awakening. This is what happens when heaven changes the climate. The rules governing movement, growth, and response are rewritten. Spiritual freezing has ended. You are no longer preserved in delay. You are no longer held in suspension. The environment has warmed to your calling. The atmosphere now supports what God placed inside you instead of suppressing it. This is why things feel different even if circumstances haven't fully caught up yet. Atmosphere always shifts before manifestation. Frequency always changes before form. And right now, your environment is aligning with your assignment. You are no longer fighting against the air. You are moving with it. Resistance has been replaced by flow. Pressure has been replaced by permission. The same steps that once felt exhausting will now feel lighter, not because you changed your effort, but because the environment changed its response. This is divine alignment. This is what it feels like when heaven removes opposition you were never meant to carry long term. Pay attention to how your spirit responds now. Pay attention to how clarity returns without force. Pay attention to how ideas come easier, rest feels deeper, and hope feels safer. These are not coincidences. They're symptoms of a climate change. God has altered the frequency around you so that your calling can finally breathe. And from this point forward, growth will feel more natural than forced. The season of resistance has ended. You're standing in a new spiritual climate, and everything ahead will respond accordingly. Chosen one, before anything changes on the outside, heaven always confirms it on the inside. That is why you felt it before you could explain it. The chaos that once lived in your thoughts has begun to quiet without effort. The mental noise that used to compete for your attention has softened. In its place, a subtle peace has entered, one that does not depend on circumstances or evidence. This peace is not emotional numbness. It is alignment. It is the internal confirmation that the atmosphere around you has changed and your spirit is responding to new air. Where pressure once lived, ease is entering. Where you once braced yourself for disappointment, your nervous system is finally learning how to rest. You may have noticed that your reactions are changing. Things that once triggered fear or anxiety no longer hold the same power. You pause more. You breathe deeper. You respond instead of react. This is not because you hardened yourself. It is because your spiritual lungs are breathing cleaner air. God has adjusted both your inner and outer climate at the same time. When the atmosphere shifts externally, the soul responds instinctively. It recognizes safety. It recognizes permission to exhale. And that exhale is sacred. It marks the end of survival mode. You don't need proof yet. You don't need signs stacked on top of each other. The peace itself is the sign. The calm itself is the evidence. God often confirms his moves through stillness, not spectacle. And right now, stillness is teaching your body what your spirit already knows, that you are no longer under threat. That the pressure is not returning. That you are safe to believe again. Safe to hope again. Safe to expect movement without bracing for disappointment. This is how the new season introduces itself, quietly, internally, unmistakably. Chosen one, now that the atmosphere has changed, your understanding of the past must change with it. What you once interpreted as rejection was protection. What felt like abandonment was shielding. What appeared to be delay was precise positioning. God did not forget you. He was guarding you. He was keeping you from premature exposure, from environments that could not sustain your growth, from opportunities that would have demanded more than you were meant to give at that time. Silence was not absence. It was strategy. There were moments when you wondered if heaven had moved on without you, if the promise had expired, if the window had closed. But divine timing does not operate on human panic. God withholds not to punish, but to prepare. The waiting season was not about denying you. It was about aligning you with the right moment, one where favor would not crush you, success would not distract you, and expansion would not distort your identity. You were being preserved. Now that timing has arrived. The delay has lifted because the conditions have matured. You are not stepping into something late. You are stepping into it ready. The new atmosphere reveals the truth. You were never overlooked. You were intentionally hidden. And now that what you carry can be sustained, God has removed the covering. This is not lost time redeemed. This is divine timing revealed. And the clarity you feel now is heaven correcting the story you once told yourself about your past. Chosen one, the atmosphere you are standing in now is not just lighter, it is fertile. This is an expansion season. Acceleration is replacing delay. Movement is replacing stagnation. Heaven is becoming audible again. You will notice it in small ways first. A message arriving at the right time. A conversation opening a door you didn't knock on. An opportunity aligning without struggle. These are not random events. They are confirmations that the environment is now cooperating with your destiny. In a fertile atmosphere, seeds respond quickly. Things you planted long ago, ideas, prayers, intentions, acts of obedience, are beginning to stir beneath the surface. You don't have to force growth. You don't have to dig them up to check on them. The soil itself is doing the work. And that is what makes this season different. What once required effort will now require awareness. What once demanded endurance will now respond to alignment. Heaven is speaking again, not in thunder, but in clarity. You will hear direction more easily. Discernment will sharpen. Confusion will lose its grip. The atmosphere is no longer blocking transmission. And as a result, everything begins to line up naturally. This is not sudden luck. This is delayed alignment finally activating. Expansion does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers through momentum that feels natural instead of forced. Chosen one of the clearest signs that the atmosphere has changed is the lifting of confusion. The fog that once clouded your decisions is dissolving. The second guessing that drained your energy is losing its authority. You are no longer torn between options that feel equally unclear. Revelation is replacing hesitation. Clarity is taking the throne. And with clarity comes emotional lightness. You may not have every answer yet, but you know enough to move. And that is the difference. Confusion immobilizes. Clarity mobilizes. You feel steadier now, more grounded, less reactive. The emotional heaviness that once sat on your chest is lifting, not because circumstances changed overnight, but because perception has. You are seeing through a clearer lens. And when vision clears, courage follows. This clarity is not loud or overwhelming. It is calm. It feels like quiet confidence. Like knowing without needing to explain. This is the peace that comes from alignment. You are no longer trying to figure everything out. You are allowing understanding to arrive in order. And as it does, your steps become lighter, your choices firmer, and your direction undeniable. Chosen one, the shift has already happened. That is why you no longer need to force outcomes. Striving belongs to the old atmosphere. In this new climate, your role is agreement, not exhaustion. Manifestation follows atmospheric change naturally. When the environment supports growth, seeds rise without struggle. And right now, blessings are descending without resistance. You don't need to chase. You don't need to convince. You don't need to prove. What is meant for you will recognize you. What aligns with your frequency will respond automatically. Effort is being replaced by flow. Pushing is being replaced by positioning. This is not passivity, it is precision. You are learning how to move in sync with what God has already released. Agreement is your posture now. Trust is your rhythm. Rest is your witness. And from this place, everything begins to meet you instead of you running after it. Chosen one, as the atmosphere around you changes, people and situations will respond differently to your presence. You are carrying a new frequency now. One that does not tolerate fear, doubt, or unworthiness. Conversations will shift. Dynamics will change. Some people will feel drawn. Others will feel uncomfortable. This is not conflict, it is calibration. God has sanitized the atmosphere around you. That means anything misaligned will either adjust or exit. You don't have to manage this. You don't have to explain yourself. Peace and joy will begin to follow you into spaces without explanation. That is the evidence of internal authority. You are no longer absorbing environments. You are influencing them. Chosen one, this change is not only around you, it is within you. You are becoming a carrier of God's wind. Your speech is lighter. Your thoughts are clearer. Your perception is elevated. You are moving in harmony with heaven. There is speed now, but not rushing. Momentum, but not anxiety. This is divine flow. You are no longer pushing against resistance. You are riding alignment. And the more you trust this movement, the more natural it becomes. This is identity in motion. Not something you claim, but something you embody. Chosen one, the upgrade happened quietly. There was no announcement, no public recognition, no dramatic moment. And yet, you entered a new spiritual zone. Your discernment increased. Your sensitivity sharpened. Old environments no longer fit. Conversations feel shallow where they once felt familiar. This is not arrogance, it is elevation. You didn't outgrow people. You outgrew atmospheres. And as you continue forward, you will notice that what once drained you no longer has access. You have been elevated silently. And from this place, nothing old can follow. Chosen one of the most powerful aspects of this new atmosphere is divine insulation. This is not just change, it is protection through elevation. Old patterns no longer have the access they once did. Distractions that used to pull at your attention are losing their grip. Cycles that once repeated themselves automatically are breaking without struggle. This is not because you are trying harder to resist them. It is because the frequency has changed. What does not match your current elevation cannot remain attached. In the old atmosphere, you had to constantly guard your energy. You had to recover from emotional drain, spiritual fatigue, and mental exhaustion. But now, calm is replacing drain. You are noticing that things no longer stick the way they used to. Words don't wound as deeply. Delays don't trigger panic. Disappointments don't spiral into despair. This is insulation. God has wrapped your spirit in a higher frequency that naturally repels what is misaligned. Protection in this season does not feel restrictive, it feels peaceful. You are not being cut off, you are being preserved. The higher you rise, the less access lower patterns have. This is why certain temptations feel irrelevant now. Certain fears feel outdated. Certain habits feel foreign. They cannot reattach because you are no longer operating on the same level. The atmosphere itself is enforcing boundaries you once had to fight to maintain. And this is how you know the shift is real, it is sustainable. Chosen one, good news in the spiritual realm does not begin with headlines or announcements, it begins internally. Before manifestation shows up visibly, peace settles invisibly. That peace you feel is not random. It is the first delivery. Favor always moves before it arrives. Heaven sends confirmation to your spirit before evidence reaches your hands. This is why you are calmer than you expected to be. Why excitement feels grounded instead of frantic. Why anticipation feels safe instead of anxious. Good news is already in motion. The alignment is already active. The delivery is not delayed, it is synchronized. What is coming is not late, and it is not early. It is precise. When good news is spiritual, it arrives layered. First peace, then clarity, then alignment, then manifestation. And right now, you are between peace and clarity, standing in the doorway of visible arrival. This is not wishful thinking. This is divine order. God does not rush what must land correctly. And what is coming to you is being delivered in a way that will not disrupt your identity or overwhelm your capacity. Chosen one, as the atmosphere changes, separation happens naturally. Not through conflict, but through frequency. People who are misaligned will begin to feel uncomfortable around you, not because you changed your personality, but because you changed levels. Conversations will fade. Connections will loosen. Situations will collapse on their own. And you will not feel the need to mourn them. This is proof of consecration. When God elevates you, He also simplifies your environment. Anything that cannot breathe at your new altitude will remove itself. You are not being isolated. You are being refined. And what leaves now would not have survived where you are going. Do not chase what exits. Do not grieve what dissolves. This separation is not loss, it is clarity. It is heaven making room for what actually belongs with you in this next phase. Chosen one, the atmosphere did not change randomly. It changed because you did. You outgrew delay. You processed grief. You released survival mode. You matured in ways that didn't make noise but made room. And when internal growth reaches a certain point, heaven responds by adjusting the external environment. You are breathing the oxygen of arrival now. Not arrival at a destination, but arrival into alignment. You are no longer just surviving. You are aligning. Flow is replacing force. Cooperation is replacing resistance. The atmosphere shifted because you are ready to sustain what comes next. This is maturity of purpose. You no longer ask for blessings that would disrupt you. You are prepared for blessings that will expand you. And heaven recognizes readiness. Chosen one, favor is responding to your presence now. You no longer have to announce yourself. Doors are opening without pursuit. Opportunities are finding you. Recognition is happening organically. This is supernatural efficiency. When the atmosphere supports you, effort decreases and results increase. You will notice that people see you differently. They listen differently. They respond differently. Not because you demanded respect, but because authority is evident. Favor is not something you chase, it is something that answers alignment. And alignment is what you are carrying now. Chosen one, time is bending. What once took long seasons is now happening in short spans. Obstacles dissolve quickly. Delays lose their authority. Nature itself responds to divine order. This is acceleration, not chaos, but efficiency. You are not behind. You are not catching up. You are moving in divine timing. And divine timing never wastes motion. Every step now compounds. Every decision builds momentum. The atmosphere is carrying you forward. Chosen one, you are not just receiving new things, you are becoming someone new. Your internal architecture has been transformed. Old emotional structures are collapsing. Strength is rooted. Clarity is flowing. Alignment is replacing struggle. You can hold more now. More responsibility, more peace, more favor, more truth. This upgrade was necessary. And it happened quietly, deeply, permanently. Chosen one, the seeds are breaking through. Prayers you stopped mentioning are resurfacing. Words spoken years ago are becoming physical. What was unseen is becoming seen. This is harvest, not sudden, but steady. Nothing you prayed was forgotten. Nothing you planted died. The atmosphere simply needed to change. And now that it has, everything buried is rising. Chosen one, as the atmosphere around you stabilizes, favor becomes magnetic. You no longer have to search for the right people. The right people are being drawn toward you. Divine appointments are activating without effort. Conversations are happening at the right time, with the right tone, carrying the right information. Delays that once stalled connection are losing authority. Mistiming is being redeemed. The environment itself is orchestrating alignment. This is not manipulation. It is resonance. When your frequency aligns with heaven, everything assigned to you can finally locate you. Favor is not chasing you because you demanded it, it is responding because you are positioned correctly. The atmosphere now reflects what God has placed on you. Opportunities no longer require explanation. They recognize you. And when recognition happens without striving, you know you are moving in divine order. You will notice that things line up more smoothly. That resistance fades faster. That doors open with less negotiation. This is not coincidence. This is the atmosphere clearing corridors of destiny so that movement is unobstructed. God is arranging encounters that will matter long-term, not momentary. And as these divine appointments unfold, you will realize how intentional this season truly is. Chosen one, your posture has changed. You are no longer carrying the same weight. Burdens feel lighter. Expectations feel healthier. Peace follows you into rooms instead of you searching for it. Your presence carries calm, not tension. Authority, not force. This is grace in motion. Grace does not rush. Grace does not panic. Grace does not need to prove itself. And that is the posture you are walking in now. You speak with less urgency and more certainty. You move with intention instead of anxiety. This is what happens when the atmosphere supports you. You stop bracing for impact and start trusting your footing. People feel this shift. They may not be able to name it, but they sense stability. They sense clarity. They sense grounded authority. And that authority does not come from control, it comes from alignment. You are no longer trying to manage outcomes. You are allowing order to express itself through you. Chosen one, this is the season of no more shrinking, no more hiding, no more dimming your light to survive environments that no longer exist. The atmosphere now supports your fullness. You are allowed to take up space. You are permitted to be seen. You are equipped to stand without apology. This is full identity emergence. Not something you announce, but something you embody. You are no longer fragmented. No longer divided between who you are and where you are. Heaven has aligned your environment with your essence. And because of that, you no longer need to protect yourself by minimizing your truth. Your divine identity is no longer fragile. It is sustained, supported, reinforced. You are not trying to become who you are meant to be. You are remembering. And remembrance brings confidence that does not require validation.